Hey guys, welcome back to the Mad Fish Garage. I'm Dr. Pete with paddleandpole.com, and in today's video we're going to take a look at how to quickly and cheaply repair a Sundolphin kayak. Now this is a Sundolphin Aruba kayak that we have here, but this technique should work for any thermoformed kayak that is made of high density polyethylene. What we're going to do today is show you how to repair your kayak using only tools that you probably have laying around the house or garage already. Alright, so one thing we are going to need is we are going to need some spare high density polyethylene to use during the welding process, and you can get this from many sources. Milk cartons are a great source of high density polyethylene. Just make sure on the bottom they say HDPE with the recycle number 2 sign on them. Alright. If you don't have that, a lot of us have 5-gallon buckets laying around the house. 5-gallon buckets work great. I don't want to get rid of my bucket, so the lids work really well. My favorite source of high density polyethylene for kayak repair is actually the little strip that goes around the bucket that you have to pull off when you open it. It's already in a long strip form. It's skinny. It works perfectly. It's just the right thickness that you can lay down a decent amount of material without having to wait too long for your iron to melt it. So this is my favorite. If you want to match your color perfectly, you can call Sundolphin direct and contact them through customer support, and they will send you what they call their hot knife repair kit. I don't know why they call it a kit, because it's actually just spare material, but the nice thing is comes from the exact same resin that they use, so you can color match your repair perfectly. Now I'm normally too much of a hurry to wait for them to send me something, so I will use the materials I normally have on hand. Grocery bags, these work just as well. Make sure that they're grocery bags that say HDPE 2 again. And now if you would like to just use material from your own kayak and get it done quickly, this is a sit-in kayak. Around this lip here there's normally a little bit of an edge, and you can actually cut off a little bit of that material. I took this right from here and use that. Nice thing is if you heat the material up first, you can cut it very easily with a razor blade knife. This works really well if you're in a location where you're a little bit more remote and you don't have the time to wait for a repair kit to be sent with you here. So with that said, let's get started on basically the low-cost way of repairing a hole in your kayak. Alright, well before we can repair the kayak, we first need to give ourselves a crack or a hole to repair. So I'm going to use my wood chisel here. And I hear people say all the time, oh, well, these thermoformed kayaks, you know, they're thin, they're cheap, you know, you're going to get a hole just by hitting a rock. Well, I've made a couple dozens of holes in these things for these videos that we've been recording for you guys, and I'll tell you that I'm surprised at how much work it takes to actually put a hole in this. So, alright, so now that we got our hole, let's move on. First things first, start by using some 80 grit sandpaper and just sanding the area that you're going to repair. This removes any oxidation that might be on the surface of the plastic, and we've just found it gives us a slightly better bond. After you've done that, wipe the whole area down with either alcohol or acetone. I'm using acetone right now. This just removes any oils that might be on the surface, and again makes it easier for that material to bond. Now for this repair, I am using 2 simple tools here. I am using a screwdriver as my hot knife, and I am using a simple propane torch that I have. If you don't have a propane torch, you can get one of these little micro torches, and these work just as well. You know. And for my filler material today, I'm actually going to use my strip of plastic from my bucket here. You can begin by getting the screwdriver tip hot. If you're not using a screwdriver, an old butter knife from the kitchen works quite well with this too. A spoon actually works well. Now most people, when they begin, they go right from here and they start laying down plastic and melting it right across the surface. The problem with that is it only bonds the plastic to the surface of the material. What we'd like to see is if you can get a little bit deeper into the base material and get that crack to bond a little bit deeper before you begin. Once the screwdriver tip gets hot enough to melt the plastic, I actually like to melt right through the crack. This will widen the area that the filler material will bond to, but it will also help to melt the crack together using just the base material. This takes a little bit of patience just because your tip cools down so quickly. But for a no-cost way to repair a kayak, it's actually quite effective. Once you feel like you've done a pretty good job of getting this groove widened out and some of that material bonded to itself deeper within the crack, now you can start adding the filler material here. It's important to remember that when adding the filler material, what we're actually trying to do is melt the filler material into the base material, which is the hull of the kayak. It's not enough just to melt it on the surface. It will bond, but it'll peel back off. It's not as strong as if you actually get it to melt into. You want to get the two materials to melt together when you do this. Take your time and let the heat do its job. You want to hold it on there long enough that the filler material gets hot enough to melt into the base material. right, and that's all there is to it. We'll let this harden up and cool down just a minute, and then we'll test it. Perfect. It holds up nicely. Now if you want, you can come back and smooth down the edges with some sandpaper. Once you get those edges smoothed down, come back with a torch and gently heat it and kind of remelt the surface to smooth it out. Give it a little bit more of a nicer look. Get rid of the sanding marks. Alright, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to throw in one extra clip here of a slightly different way to begin fusing that crack together using just the base material. In this instance, we're still using the propane torch and the screwdriver, but we are getting it hot and pushing it in perpendicular to the crack. And we're pushing it pretty deep. We're trying not to go completely through the material, but we want to get that tip to melt down through most of the width of the base material to give us a better bond and to fuse that base material together deeper within the crack before we lay the filler material over the top. The one thing I will suggest to you is we do not recommend, after doing our test now, that you heat up the base material directly using the torch like I did in this video. If too much heat gets applied to that base material, it starts to get really soft and flexible, and it becomes very hard to get it to hold its shape. It likes to distort, and sometimes it'll even pull your seam that you're welding apart as it starts to distort. So try to keep as much heat off of the base material and limit the heat just to the area that you're welding. Hey, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, could you please help us out and hit the subscribe button? We've got a lot of content coming out each and every week, and it would really help us out as a new channel if you'd like this video and hit the subscribe button. Thanks!